Now, it will seem that President Muhammadu Buhari is making good his promises to produce us a list, a ministerial list, before the 30th day of September, because the papers have been reporting that some names have been sent to the Department of State Security for screening. Now, we're going to be looking at these people whose names have been sent, checking them out, their credibility, are they good enough? Is there proper representation? We're not going to be doing this alone. We're going to be giving you an avenue to call in. Our phone lines are going to be running on your screen so you can be a part of this conversation. But to have this conversation, we have a guest with us in the studio. Now, he was a former presidential aspirant under the Action Alliance, I would say, and he was a convener of 150 million Nigerians for Change. He's a politician and a political analyst. I present to you our guest for today, Daniel Akinlami. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is not our first time of having him in our studio. This is our second time, right?
Yeah.
So before we get into the discussion of today, quickly, what made you step down?
Well, as I've been saying, it's just politics. You know, when you get to a point where what you think should be the ideology of a party is found wanting. So I think it's just rather to stick to yourself and wait for the appropriate time.
Okay, so now you're waiting for the appropriate time. Maybe we're thinking 2019.
Well, everything is in God's hand.
Just ask a question on ideology. You mentioned that when you see that the ideology of a party does not favor you, you look for an exit point. So obviously you're no longer in that party.
Well, definitely.
What party? Are you independent or are you in another party?
I'm independent for now.
You're independent. All right. So you're not supporting any political
party?
Although a little birdie had told me.
But I actually support what President Buhari is doing.
All right.
But I don't necessarily need to be a member of his party.
All right. Just the person and not the party.
No, not the party.
All right.
Being in support of what President Muhammadu Buhari is doing, a lot of people were upset at the fact that he had to wait this long to produce his ministerial list. Were you upset or were you in favor of this?
I'm not disappointed. That's the word. I won't say upset. This is the man that has announced from day one when he was sworn in that the mess on ground is enormous. So he's not going to rush into anything. And also, he needs to put in a new system before the cabinet will be formed.
All right.
Because if you are inheriting a disaster as civil service, as the structure of the government in all the MDAs, and you want to build a new house on a faulty foundation, you can predict where you're going to head. So that's what he's been trying to avoid. And I think I can give him credit for that because it's also a visionary move to do what is right properly.
Okay, we'll come back to having this conversation, but if you're watching us from wherever you are in the world and you want to be a part of this conversation, feel free to call us on the lines 01277-8196, 01277-2196, 01277-2777-196. We'll be waiting for your calls. You can contribute. You can ask questions that you'd like to know. Now, I just wanted to ask a question. Do you feel that this list properly represented the female folk?
Well, I think first, we cannot take everything in all these lists that are being brandished, left, right, and center, hook, line, and sinker. We also need to tread cautiously because this list still look like guesswork, especially the one that was released by a major newsprint yesterday. Yes. That's been circulated online everywhere. But they are just being reportedly put together. So there's no affirmative source here to them. So as we proceed to discuss them, so we just need to have that at the back of our mind, that we cannot say they're authentic. Yes. And I still have a feeling that Mr. President may surprise us, you know. But we can see the sign that some names on this list that have been brandished will eventually be in the cabinet.
Yes. And now you mentioned the
list. Coming to the women representation now, now it's looking like there are not enough women. But perhaps we should not conclude yet until we see the total appointment that will be unfolded. And then don't forget that we still have appointment for the MDAs too after the ministerial appointment. So I believe Mr. President will definitely respond to that to balance things up.
All right, just to also highlight the names that were released yesterday, according to what you mentioned, a number of newspapers carried this story yesterday and again today, this morning. We have the names of people like Mr. Festus Odimegu. We have Mr. Pat Utomi also on that list. We have Prince Olagusoye Oyilola. We also have Mr. Wale Edun. We have Mr. Femi Falana. And also we have some surprising names. Dele Momodu, publisher of Ovation magazine, Abdurrahman Dambazum, also an ex-chief executive of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the first female, Mrs. Ifweko Omoigui Okaru, also Abubakar Malami. Others include Rotimi Amechi, Rotimi Akeredolu, Engineer Funsho Lokon. We also have former Governor Rabiu Musa Kwakwanso, and names like Kehinde Lawansin, Chief Bayojo, SAN, just to mention a few. We also have Bisola Adegbero and Isaiah Danjuma, who is General T.Y. Danjuma's son. These are the names that have been said to be leaked as the names that have been submitted for screening. What do you think about those names?
Well, I think it's a misfeeling. There are some individuals there in this list that ordinarily, on any good day, they merit to be in the federal cabinet by their antecedents, by their experience, both professional and business-wise, and governance too. So, and you look at people like Professor Pat Utomi being put on this reportedly announced list. But you know, he's a renowned economist, academic, and businessman that has a lot of ideas. And he also contested to be the president at some time. Yeah. So he has, over the time, contributed in terms of policy making in this country. So if he gets the appointment, I think it should be a good one for this government. That's part of the direction people were actually expecting the government to go, to bring up technocrats. Look at Mr. Femi Falana as well. He's a lawyer that has been, you know, very active, especially in the human rights area, and he has distinguished himself over the time to be aggressive, rugged, consistent. Yeah. So perhaps if Mr. President consider him as the Attorney General, we should have a real serious anti-corruption crusade along with some dramas, you know.
I need to just point out something as well, because you mentioned Femi Falana. Remember, 30 years ago, he was jailed by President Buhari as well. Yeah. And some people have said that perhaps this appointment is to show that he's no longer, he has left his military garb and put on the, you know, the uniform of the civilian. Do you think this is
Yes, as soon as these names came out over the weekend, some people have postulated this, that it should be a credit to Mr. President, and it shows that it's now a comfort. But beyond that, I think Mr. President is an objective man. Okay. You know, so if you are qualified for something and you merit that position, you know, beyond what has happened in the past, you know, so he would definitely still feel obliged to put you in a position you can work with him. And if this comes true, so to say, if it comes true that he makes the cabinet at the end, and perhaps is given such a role as Attorney General or any other role where his ability will help the country, I think we should commend Mr. President for that.
Okay, now we'll talk of Odimegu, and we know that Odimegu had a fallout with President Goodluck Jonathan, and a few days to re-election, he ran out, or he left the country. I wouldn't say he ran out. And after a while, he resigned, and then he traveled to the United States. Now he's back. Do we see? We also hear that he's friends with former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Do we see some sort of conspiracy here? Do we think that this is some sort of, because we know how they're anti-President Goodluck Jonathan's government, because you were not in favor of Goodluck Jonathan's president administration, then you're in favor of my administration, such that your enemy's enemy becomes your friend. Do we see some sort of conspiracy here between?
Yeah, I think it may be too early to start looking at the angle of conspiracy now. Perhaps when the real list comes out from the presidency and the list is forwarded to the National Assembly for screening, then it will make a big sense to now look at the angles, who push who, and who is who representing in the cabinet, so to say. But for now, perhaps what the people have been postulating out there could make some sense. But what if at the end, these individuals will not even make President Buhari's list? But the angles of this former head of state and the leaders of APC, especially Asiwaju Tinubu, having one or two of his boys there, they cannot be ruled out. Okay, so if you have a good material and you show it to Mr. President, say this person will help you in this area, and he keeps searching everywhere, and this same person, you know, is still ahead of all other candidates compared with him for such a slot. So I think it makes sense to give such opportunity to those people.
It's not possible that we have this conversation without me asking you your position as to the issue of federal character. We know a lot of people, there's been so much backlash on social media, and people have been coming out to say that President Muhammadu Buhari's appointments are usually flawed in the area of federal character, and he's always picking people from the north and ignoring other sides of the divide. Do you agree with this?
Well, first, I think federal character as it is now has been practiced, enshrined in our constitution, is still helping Nigeria. And having said that, without federal character, we could have some extremists. They'll just get there, they won't even bother to even think or search out for potentials in other regions in the country. Those people, they just know, they just want to work with them. And I think where we are today, Nigeria is not ripe to sacrifice balance for merit. We will get there someday, but we're not yet there. If you remember all that happened in this last election, how everything almost turned into war, people threatening to break away, people threatening to bomb some region, to bomb some people, you know, and how we eventually came out of the whole Olabalu and everything by the grace of God, you know. So we are not yet there as a nation that we can go for all-out merit. And as it is now, there are 3 weeks for a president to go on this journey as a leader of a country like Nigeria. So the first, you could have balance. And what I mean by balance is that that's exactly what has been happening in PDP for the past 16 years. Balance is that they look at anybody they could get from all the states. They pick them one by one. They have a kind of equal representation. The presidencies from the Southwest, then the VP North, and then the Senate President from Southeast, Speaker back to North, and then it's also reflected on the SGF and the Chief of Staff. So PDP has been able to demonstrate that they balance things. I don't know if that as a result of party loyalty or party patronage or whatever that's also influenced that. But I think where they failed is that they did not have a mix of merit and balancing. And that's number 2. You could have that approach to leadership as a leader. Right. And what I think we need now, we need to go from where we are coming from, that everything's all about balancing. We need to now have a mix of merit and balancing. That is, you look into every region, every state, you take time to pick the best material that can always come up, represent their people at the federal level. And I think the third area is all-out merit. All-out merit in the sense that maybe the best 20 people that can do best for Nigeria will only come from Ogun State, and you don't mind what other states have to say. You just pick those 20 people from Ogun State, and you put them to do the job at the federal level. And you know what will come out of that? Because Nigeria is not ripe.
So you have said that we're talking about merit, balancing, and all-out merit. These are things that we should consider when we're dealing with politics. And I'm going to ask Mr. Victor, in the spirit of appointments, what do you think? Do you think Nigeria is ripe enough to ignore federal character and all-out merit, or do you think we should be able to strike a balance somehow?
I think we should be able to strike a balance. I think I agree with the guest that we're not there yet. I mean, the multicultural nature of Nigeria, we're not ready for all-out merit yet.
So thank you very much, Mr. Victor. We're going to keep our fingers crossed. There's still speculations. This isn't the final list. We're going to keep our fingers crossed. September 30th is the deadline where we get to see the final ministerial list. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
On that note, we'll be heading over to the news center. Victor Roro is standing by for News Express. Stay tuned.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.